So today I want to make a video on the purposeful induction of a deeply confused state. I think this is what the most masterful sociopaths do, and this is the kind of the final aim for someone who won't submit to them as their slave, or someone that's fully codependent upon them, someone who won't allow that type of psychology to be fostered. The aim of the sociopath uh, who has power over that person kind of shifts. And I think the ultimate, either it's they're aiming to create a perfectly deeply confused state, or the fact that the psychology of like a healthy normal person and a sociopath are so different through the interaction. If the sociopath is the one with the power, over time the the person who has who's in the weaker position is going to become deeply confused, and it's kind of going to start going crazy, right? And see, the thing is, there's two roads: either you go insane or you go into cognitive decline, right? There comes a certain point where they've isolated you socially, they've fostered financial codependence, and then all of a sudden they're not they're not following through at all. And so you're worried about, like, you go from, like, having a very kind of respectable lifestyle to then going to, like worrying about where you're going to eat from in a couple months, and not having, if they're really successful, for example, if they're a parent and they've done this to their own child, you know, the person might not have a college degree or a certification or like any way to like make a substantial living or anywhere close to what they've been accustomed to through the sociopath kind of playing this financial game of, like, making the person have an abundance and then taking it away, then giving abundance and then taking it away, like through this game. And so that person all of a sudden is in a life crisis. And what happens is, like, if they keep you in that confused state for a long duration, which recently happened to me. So at the age of 30, right before I turned 30, I was making my way back to the US after being abroad for like about a year and a half, 2 years. And I was making my way back to the US under the context with my father. Remember, I'm a Muslim Pakistani, so there's a very particular context to us and our relationship and our situation and our implied contracts and, kind of our social presuppositions. And so at 30, I'm making my way back to the US with the assumption that my father is going to provide a monthly amount to me for about 2 years. And in that 2 years, I'm going to get my 10-year visa for India, and I'm going to move to India for a few months to Lucknow. As a particular, it's like a old Muslim city, and I'm going to get married there, and I'm going to start some sort of business either in India or online or do something, right? Now, from that place, I go to America, and you have to understand there's 17 years of gaslighting previous to this that I've been dealing with. And so I go to the US, and all of a sudden the presuppositions are completely different. I have to give back my car, and so we have to pay for my car, or we have to decide whether we're going to renew the lease or purchase it or whatever. I have a car there. And so we do that. And immediately after that, this has kind of happened to me before. So I'm trying to get rid of the car, but my father really wants me to buy it. But I know once I buy it, the presupposition of going to India and the thing I'm actually invested in is going to switch around. And he's going to want me to stay in the United States, but he's not going to explicitly talk about it with me. He's going to try to force it and ram it down my throat, which is what he always does. He has his own unconscious agenda, and verbally he will be affirming the agenda that we've co-negotiated, but like through his actions he's forcing a different agenda. And for someone who's just like trusting, and we've just had a conversation about something, we understand each other, it's really difficult to deal with that, like, contrast of, like, oh, we just agreed to something, and then his actions, and even like detecting the pattern where, oh, he has a different agenda, and that contrast and articulating that, it can be really difficult if you're not a sociopath or a narcissist yourself. It takes years, and once you're accustomed to it, you feel resistant to it, because it's like like if I haven't consented to something verbally, I don't want something to be forced on me or coerced, and the thing with the sociopath, if they don't coerce it on you, it's not a win for them, right? So they don't want to do the explicit negotiation. Whatever they agree to through the explicit negotiation won't be satisfying to them, even if it's really easy for them to do and it's actually a win for them in terms of the way most people think about a win. They won't be enrolled in it because um, they just want to dominate and they want to do the coercive thing on someone. They want to win in that way. They want to coerce the other person into a position they don't want to be in, and that's when they feel satisfied as a sociopath, right, or as a narcissist. Um, and so I go there, and so for now I'm stuck in the U.S. for 2 years, and I'm in that deeply confused state. I don't know what to do. For months, I had a credit card which I was using, but I'm like confused. I don't feel comfortable being at home, and Louisiana isn't like New Orleans isn't like the cheapest city to just be out and about in the city. Like it adds up, like if you're just looking for a place to be, you don't have anywhere to be for like a while, like and you can't just sit in the same spot forever. And there's only like a limited amount of coffee houses. You can't show up to the same place every single day, and even if you show up like once or twice a week, they start to kind of notice because you obviously aren't doing well. And so it's like it's not the most comfortable place to be if you don't have your own place or the place to be, and you're in this position where you don't really have the finances to go out and get your own place. You don't have experience working a job, and I'm someone who from the age of 14 to 17 work at the mall in the Riverwalk. Like I worked at a mall during the summers, and so I had that entrepreneurial work for myself type of kind of spirit and work to make my living at a young age, but my dad purposefully inhibited that. And now at 32, all of a sudden, once like I'm not doing well psychologically and like medically, he wants to like kind of push me out so I'll never be able to attain my potential. And there's all these kind of like dynamics at play. Anyways, so when you're in that situation, you get really, really confused. You get really confused. Like the person's always playing like not living up to the context. And after 17 years, so for 2 years I was in New Orleans in just like a deeply, deeply confused state, not knowing what to do. And that's a lot where aggression comes from, like stuck in a tiny room, building allergies just to being in the room, like developing allergies to the scent of the paint or something, like just not being able to work out as I'm accustomed to, not being able to eat right because New Orleans isn't the most healthy place and there's not a lot of healthy options. And so, if you're forced to eat out all the time, you're not going to be eating well. And so like knowing that like I'm going downhill like health wise and like in all sorts of ways and not being able to do anything about it, and like being in a psychological prison, and in a deeply confused state, like that's basically what a sociopath will do over time. They'll put you in that position, like, and they want you to be in that position. And what's going to happen when you enter into that position relative to them, or relative to your own psychological state, no matter how brilliant or genius or creative or capable you were before, if you go through that experience of self-destructiveness, deep, deep confusion, like in a psychological imprisonment, you're not going to come out the same on the other side. There's just going to be things that you're not capable of anymore. If you were really talented at something, it's going to affect your talent. Like there's a lot of consequences through going to that. And I feel like there's no legal recourse for this. This is like the ultimate damage you could do to someone outside of killing them. And there's no legal recourse, basically gaslighting you into that deeply confused state, gaslighting you into a psychological prison, and gaslighting you into a really helpless situation, right? Like that is the ultimate aim. They're trying to destroy you because you won't become their slave. They want to destroy you, right? And that's not something that there's legal, you know what I mean? Like how did they force you? What? Because the way they do it is there's a series of presuppositions, there's a series of social contracts that are enacted, and contexts that are negotiated, which are constantly they're used to create expectations. They manage your expectations, like they create these expectations for you, and then while you are expecting them to do something, they're doing something completely different in order to keep you there and keep your mind invested there and keep you like investing effort under that context, while they're doing something else to harm you, or doing something else to that's a distraction, and they're doing something else to serve their own agenda. And you investing into that context in some way that you don't know is serving their agenda, and they're actually winning by having you believe that they're going to live up to those expectations. And that's really difficult to articulate, like in human, like in a human, like it's taking advantage of the homo sapien socio neural network, basically, that's designed to trust and interact and cooperate. It's taking advantage of that, and it's really difficult to detect like a sociopath, or whatever you want to call it, a narcissist in that way, an extreme narcissist. So that's just the message I wanted to convey about this situation, that a deeply confused state is basically what a sociopath will do if you won't become their slave. And we need to develop legal recourse for this type of behavior.